Hi, and welcome to Mysteries Channel. If it's your first time coming here, I want to say thank you for clicking on my video. And if you are a subscriber, I want to say thank you for that because I'm a small channel and I appreciate all the help I can get. Today, I'm going to talk about the Sumerian Kings List, especially the Antediluvian side of the Kings List. What is it besides beautiful to look at? It's a reason to get up in the morning, people. I'm not even joking. This thing is ridiculously fascinating, beyond belief. In fact, I just can't believe we don't focus more on this in school because it would just make you pumped up and hyped to learn some prehistory, learn history at all. It's just fascinating. So anyway, that being said, let's get to it. The Sumerian Kings List is an ancient list of kings from Sumer. Sumer is in what is now Iraq. The list gives the names of the kings, the length of their reign, and the location of their kingship. The list is in sequential order and begins with the Antediluvian rulers, and this is the part of the list that I'm going to focus on the most. Well, almost entirely. It's prehistoric, and many of the rulers listed cannot be confirmed to have existed in other records, and so many scholars presume that they were mythical beings. The lack of historical evidence isn't the only reason these rulers are believed to be mythical. In the beginning of the list, these presumably mythical beings, pre-dynastic kings, rule for exceptionally long reigns. The very first king on the list to be confirmed by an archaeological find is Emin-Bar-Agassi, and he is the 29th king on the list. Emin-Bar-Agassi was the king of Kish. He subdued Elam, and he reigned for 900 years in what is estimated to be about 2600 BC. He is the earliest ruler on the King's List, whose name is attested directly from archaeology. And how do you ask? 2 alabaster vase fragments ascribed with his name were found in Nippur, where, according to the Sumerian Tamal inscription, he is said to have built the first temple. There are at least 4 fragments that bear his name or abbreviations of his name, claiming him to be the ruler of Kish. What is also interesting about this ruler is that he is also mentioned in the original Sumerian rendition of the Epic of Gilgamesh. So everyone listed before Emin-Bar-Agassi is suspected to be fictional, or at least maybe an amalgamation of gods and rulers from mythology. Of course they do. Because the Antediluvian rulers have such long reigns, many scholars have tried to rework the timelines to fit into something more comfortable with their view. It is hard for them to report this King's List all the way back to the Great Flood, the deluge that ended almost everything. So instead, they try to rework the numbers to correspond with the flood that happened to the north of Kish. They wanted to fit in with the floods at Shuruppak around 2900 BC, because they have found evidence for a flood around this time period. However, with the writing literally on the wall, the numbers go way, way, way further back. And perhaps there was a flood prior to the one in 2900 BC. But hey, what do I know? While researching this, a couple of things came to mind. A couple of other videos I've done. One, the Adam and Eve story, the book by Chan Thomas that was released by the CIA in 2006. And also when I was looking at the ancient cities on that remote viewing thing, when I was looking at Athens, some of the aspects of the rulers very closely match the aspects of the Sumerian Kings List. So anyway, with that being said, let's go on to the pre-flood section of it. Antediluvian rulers on this list begin with Ululim. He is the first king of Eridu and of Sumer. It is said that Enki was the god of Eridu and had just brought civilization to Sumer at this point. The entry on the list for Ululim is as follows. After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. In Eridu, Ululim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. Professor Halo of Yale associates Ululim with a composite of half fish and half man, a counselor or a culture hero to the land. Other scholars suggest that Ululim is the contemporary of the biblical figure of Adam. Ululim rules for 8 sars, equaling 28,000 years, making each sar 3,600 years. The second on the list is Alalgar. He was the second king of Sumer. Alalgar ruled for 36,000 years. After Alalgar's reign, the kingship is moved from Eridu to Bad Tabira. Once in Bad Tabira, the next ruler is Enmen-Luana. Enmenluana's reign goes on for 12 sar, an astonishing 43,200 years, making his reign the longest on the rulers of the Kings List. Succeeding him is Enmengalana. Enmengalana is the fourth on the list and rules for 28,000 years and is succeeded by Dumuzid. Dumuzid is known as the Shepherd. The scholars believe that Dumuzid later becomes known as Tammuz. Tammuz is an ancient Mesopotamian god who consorts with the goddess Inanna, who is later known as Ishtar, Easter. Tammuz is mentioned in the book of Ezekiel and possibly alluded to in ancient Hebrew writings. In the Sumerian poem, Inanna prefers the farmer. Dumuzid, the shepherd, competes against the farmer for Inanna's hand in marriage. In Inanna's descent to the underworld, Dumuzid fails to mourn Inanna's death. And when she returns from the underworld, she allows the Gala demons to drag him to the underworld as her replacement. Inanna later regrets this decision and decrees Dumuzid will spend half the year in the underworld, but the other half of the year with her, while his sister takes his place, thus resulting in the seasons. The Greek legends of Adonis and Aphrodite are considered to be derived from Dumuzid and Inanna. After Dumuzid's reign, the kingship is moved to Larak, and Antediluvian rules for 28,800 years. Then Larak falls, and the kingship is moved to Zimbir, and Enmendarana reigns for 21,000 years. His name means the meeting place of heaven and earth, or more literally, the bond of above and below. Reminds me of someone. In Semitic legend, he is brought to heaven by the gods and taught divine secrets. He is compared to Enoch as he enters heaven without dying, and both he and Enoch are the seventh names on their respective lists. Enmendarana is held in significance among pre-Sumerians as the ancestor that all priests of the sun god had to be able to trace their descent to. After his reign, Zimbir falls, and the kingship is moved to Shuruppak, yes, the river mentioned earlier, and Ubaratutu is the last antediluvian king to reign over Sumer. He is said to have reigned for 18,600 years. He is the son of the previous ruler, Enmendarana, and ruled the land until a flood swept over his land. Ubaratutu is mentioned in the Epic of Gilgamesh as the father of Utnapishtim. Utnapishtim was instructed by God to build a boat in order to survive the flood. This is the end of the Antediluvian list. After the Antediluvian kings are listed immediately after this, the tablet says, "Then the flood swept over." After this entry, the tablet says, "After the flood had swept over, the kingship had descended from heaven. The kingship was in Kish." Now, to me, it almost sounds like Ubaratutu's son, Utnapishtim, or Noah. Noah goes on the boat, but it sounds like others left and came back, or replacements were sent because they descended from heaven again. Just my thoughts. Anyway, many of the kings on the Sumerian Kings List have nothing written about them, and are indeed the only written accounts of them are on this list. I think it's interesting that many scholars believe that the list on this stone tablet is myth, or at least the first half of it, or the first 29 entries, because once they can corroborate something, all of a sudden it becomes fact. Even though they have to know when they are dealing with antiquity, something somewhere so old, so destroyed by the ravages of time, the great flood, the cataclysms of the earth, that they are only getting a fragment of the story. But once they get just one other fragment, all of a sudden we have fact and no longer fiction. It just drives me nuts that it always comes down to this. Anyway, reading up on this reminded me of stories passed down around the world, of course. Legendary characters, myths, gods from all over whisper these same tales. The first king of the Lulim sounds very much like Cecrops I of Athens. Cecrops is also an antediluvian king. He is depicted as half fish and half man. He is also a culture hero. Cecrops brings civilization to Athens, teaching them marriage, reading and writing, and ceremonial burial. In fact, if you look around in ancient tales from anywhere, you can come up with a lot of names. Oannes, Vishnu, Dagon, Durga. And the list can go on. And one day, I'm going to actually organize myself, and I'm going to start making these lists. I'm sure plenty of other people have done it, but I just wonder how many times you just miss one little thing here or there. So anyway, that, my friends, that's the Antediluvian Sumerian Kings List. Shit's fascinating. I'm going to look into more parts of it, but yeah, tell me what you think. Do you think that either there was a global civilization that had similar characters ruling on all these different parts of the globe, so the same stories are told all the time, or similar stories are told over and over again? Or do you think that there was, well, I'm just going to say this, there had to be a global civilization at one point in time. And either the stories have been passed down to everybody, or the leaders were very much alike and they were sent down from above to rule different parts of the world. Anyway, tell me what you think. Have yourself a great day.